Here we go. This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruitment podcast. And I cannot believe it's taken a good couple of years of me pushing, poking, and prodding to convince our next guest to come on the podcast. And that's not because of anything untoward. It's just because we've already had the founder on. But this is my amazing advocate and my incredible sponsor, and somebody that I would like to think is a really good friend of mine. And based on our offline conversation, I think there's a whole lot more we can talk. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome to our amazing community today, Kieron Mayers, who is the head of marketing for our sponsor, Paiger. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me. I don't know how you managed to go from that pre-podcast chat so seamlessly into this professional podcast chat, let's put it that way. Not that there's anything unprofessional, just probably not work related, but very interesting topic of conversation.
It was. I mean, God knows, everyone's now like, what were you talking about? And
Yeah.
this goes out, I'll be like, I can't remember what we were talking about. Yeah, but that kind of shows, in recruitment, you do that, don't you? You have to switch it on.
Yeah, it's talented. I sometimes, I guess I struggle with that. Maybe I'm not, because I've always done roles where I'm a little bit more behind the scenes, not quite as used to that flicking of a switch. But no, that massive thanks for having me on. I don't think I've not been on competitiveness really, because you've always got a long list of amazing guests, like genuinely amazing guests. So it's quite a privilege to be on.
That's how you approached me, wasn't it? I think you were sort of boy fanning me.
Yeah. So I think it stemmed from probably, when did we used to commute in cars? Feels like a decade ago.
Yeah.
But my daily commute used to be heavily involved in listening to podcasts. And I think being a marketer, you were almost like driven by this new medium that you thought, if that's garnering audiences of thousands of people, it's a really direct way to get the insight on what's going on in that recruitment world. So yeah, I think in the main podcasts I listen to are recruitment related or marketing related. That's how I heard yours. And I think it always captured my imagination because it was a little bit different, a little bit more off the cuff, a little bit more honest, if I'm honest. Yeah. So yeah, when I then joined Paiger in that role and I was looking for less direct marketing, less sales enablement marketing, how do we increase brand awareness amongst our audience? There's a lot of very expensive ways to do that.
Yeah.
But I joined the two things together and thought, which are the podcasts whereby I feel like other listeners tune in because they get genuine value, and if our brand was slotted in amongst that in a less intrusive way than just constantly peppering them with adverts about what the product is, that's when I approached you. And here we are, 2 years now.
In May 2025, it'll be 2 years since we officially started, and it actually feels like longer in a way, in a good way, because I think, and if anyone is listening from my previous sponsors, then I'm sorry, I'm going to say this, but you have behaved and conducted yourself how I see a true partner. Like, you have been, I really feel like you're by our side, like you're so supportive, and all the events that we've done, every episode, I really feel like you've always got behind us. And you and I get on really well, and maybe it's, I don't know, the Northerners in us, but we're just what you just said there to describe why my podcast, because I know that there's a plethora out there, and I say that in the intro, I know there's so many to choose from. I'm a huge podcast fan. Like, to me, I'm very rarely listening to the radio, and if I'm out on a walk or I'm in the car, I just don't listen to music. I listen to pods. I want to learn, I want to digest it, and I just think I get so much inspiration. But the fact that you've described me as off the cuff and honest, that probably describes my personality quite well, actually.
I'd say so, yeah.
I just, I see this as a really relaxed forum, but I think that's actually also down to the guests that I have on, that people tend to be, I'd like to think, you can almost tell, I always say this to Shannon and Lily, who produce the show, you can tell the people that I actually genuinely like, and the ones that I don't, because the ones that I don't, we're just not vibing.
Whereas you're struggling to make edits and clips that'll actually engage anyone else because there's just no real rapport.
Well, I have to say, I mean, joking aside, and if anyone is listening that is a fellow podcast host, you'll find that you'll get approached by a lot of these podcast PR companies. And I've had a lot of guests, which, some of them have, I have to say, some of them have been amazing guests. And you can tell that I've really learned so much from them. And they've been, that's how we've grown our overseas audience largely, not all, but largely. but some of them, they're literally doing the rounds, they're on everybody's show, and you're just like, actually, it feels a bit samey. And I've never
Yeah.
to be the case. Of course, there's always going to be certain topics which are going to be talked about because it's all things that are really relevant right now. But you know, I'd like to think that most people get something from each episode because we just try and keep it real. Because ultimately, in our industry, it's about people dealing with people, and we all face similar situations.
Yeah, I agree. I think that diversity of guests, I've noticed that I've still got glitter on my head.
He's got glitter on his head.
Every time I move forward, I see a little sparkle. I'm conscious of it. So, but yeah, the dangers of filming at home on a desk while my daughter messes around with arts and crafts.
I have to say, I don't miss the glitter stage because I often go out and sometimes people would come up to me and go, you know, you've got glitter all down the side of your face. If you've used their towel, you've laid on their pillow to have a cuddle.
Yeah.
It's the most evil part of childhood. Glitter.
Can't get rid of it. No, I'd go one further. I'd say
in your wooden groove.
Play-Doh is worse. Play-Doh is worse. I'd have glitter over Play-Doh. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, variety of guests. I think that really helps because there's some recruitment podcasts out there where there's an element of rinse repeat, and even if the person's different, it'd often be an origin story and how you made so much money and what you did in this disaster. And then there's a kind of archetype to the story structure. Whereas if you're bringing on people from different backgrounds, you've got everything from health and well-being through to diversity.
Don't forget the sex toy company. I did. Yeah. You remember that one? That was pre-Paiger days. I did.
Oh, right. I don't know if I'd have signed up for sponsoring that. We might get in trouble.
That was about 4 years.
The most listened to episode ever.
It wasn't actually. She was the ex-CEO of Adidas, and she then moved to, I can't remember the name of the company, but they are one of the biggest companies in the world on distributing sex toys. And she came on. And they were through a friend, you know, it's not that she wasn't a randomer. And we had the most, because it's all about leadership. It doesn't matter what she's selling. It's all that's the whole purpose. But yeah, that's very kind feedback. And look, you can stop blowing smoke up my arse now. But there might be, it's very possible that people skim through that advertised message that I read out.
Advertising's typical for that, right? We hear the same thing and you tune out. So hence our conversation this week that we need to redo that message, because if someone hears it, they'll probably just think, oh, I heard that every week.
Fast forward. Although I always find that when I do that, the worst one that I love, we could talk about with the podcast actually. I really like the one with Jessie Ware with her mum. It's oh my god, it's literally gone from my head. I can't think what it's called now. Table Manners, and they do all their adverts at the start, so it's actually about 5 minutes before they get going, and I just fast forward. I don't even listen. Yeah. So we're very mindful of how we curate our podcast, because ultimately we're very grateful for your sponsorship, but equally we know people are here to listen to the game.
Yeah, it's listener first, right?
Yeah. This is your chance to tell us, elevator pitch, what is Paiger?
Oh, right on the spot. And an interesting time to do this, because as I mentioned to you in a message earlier in the week, you want to redo the messaging because, we want to keep it fresh, but also we are going through what I would class as a repositioning or updated messaging and how we want to pitch ourselves. Mm-hmm. I think as a marketer, you tend to look at what does the market see us as versus what do we perceive our value propositions to be. Yep. And it is very recent. We've had those meetings internally, like, let's get a feel of what the market needs. We don't develop technology for us, we develop it for the customer. So ultimately now Paiger is a new business platform for recruiters. That's how we are pitching the product.
Yep.
In the past, we've tried to be all things to all people within a recruitment business, specifically recruiters and sales teams, but also the marketing function of that, the makeup of a recruitment company. We always looked at ourselves as the piece of technology that you must have once you've got a CRM system and a website. We wanted to be that next piece of kit. I think we've learned through trial and error, market kind of ups and downs, that the one constant, even though recruitment ebbs and flows, is that need to build new business. So it's not necessarily that we're saying that's all we do, but how we want the market to perceive us. And my job is to change how we position ourselves and put our messaging across, And stuff like our sponsorship slot with you has to be where it's like the arrow that pierces the armor. We are a new business platform for recruiters.
Yep.
Once that hook gets people interested and go, do you know what? That's one of my challenges. Yep. We then can show you how we go about supporting your recruiters to generate new business. Yep. So as you know, the platform's more to it than that, but in a nutshell or elevator pitch, that's what we are.
But it's simplifying, you know, what the problem is, because that's what when anyone's selling anything, you have to solve a problem for your customer. You don't always know.
That's right.
It is. And I think that's very succinct. And I also think that for anyone that is listening, whether you're running a recruitment business or you're literally starting out, you're always going to need to develop business. Always.
Yes.
Even when you're in a massively boom market like 2022, by the way, that ain't ever coming back, but where you might find yourself listening to this going, well, actually, we've got loads of jobs. This is all fun. We don't need it. That's not how you should see business development. How you see business development is, you know, you are developing new networks, both with your clients, your candidates, and it never gets talked about, your advocates.
Yeah, exactly that.
We've got so many advocates in our space as Key Recruitment who have never placed with us, who have never got a job through us, who will probably never get a job through us, but would only ever recommend us to us, and they will bring business to us. And that's what business development means to me.
Yeah, and I think that's the crux of what we're trying to do. It's move a known tech product in the market. You know, we're quite niche in that's the industry we build technology for. It's where the majority of our background comes from, whether it be marketers in recruitment, techies in recruitment, recruiters who are now salespeople within our business. Yeah. So I think when we look at our makeup and all the functions of a software business, we're all kind of born, bred and brought up through the recruitment industry. Yeah. So it's not an altruistic thing that we want to only give back to that, but it's what we know. And yeah, when you invest time developing the technology and over time, you know, I think we're coming up to 7 years now, it starts to like bleed and mold itself into something that this is a good idea and this is a good idea and that's a good idea. Mm-hmm. When we've like Darren, the founder, and he's still the lead techie at the end of the day, he still has the kind of genius ideas of, I could solve that problem I heard a client talk about. Yep. What we're trying to now do is harness that and focus it to be, actually, it's got to be about BD first. Like that is what the market is crying out for. And you've summed it up. When we're in make hay while the sun shines market with regards to BD and we don't need it, I think that's a fallacy like you touched on. Recruitment business should always be doing it because we just don't know when that next downturn comes and how deep it will be. So it's that always on mentality.
Always on. I did a really, at the start of 2025, it's probably no secret, and I talk about this really openly, I had a car crash of a January. It was just, every process went to shit. Everything that I came back from in New Year, just people had changed their minds, which, you know, it happens and you do what you cover everything and you just know you go through a cycle. We've obviously got the looming national insurance increases. Everything just seemed like, oh my God. And whenever I've gone through anything like that, I've gone through many dips in my 26 years in recruitment. I actually tend to then take a step back and work on the business. And I've always done that. I really dug very deep and did that. And I actually did an analysis of our placements over the last 5 years and which companies. I really went nitty gritty, and I've got a really stark stat for people in that over the last 5 years, over 30% of the companies we had previously placed with had gone under.
Oh, wow.
Didn't survive.
That's a lot.
And that's over the last 18 months, those companies. And you know, you try and take yourself back to that moment in time when you're placing these strategic hires and these always experienced people, and you never would have predicted this would have happened at the time. You know, they seem to be market leaders, they were doing all the right things. And as we all know, what the last couple of years has shown us is that there's so many external contributing factors to how successful a company can be, or should be, or will be. But going back to the point, it's that you must always be business developing. So even though we might place with, I don't know, 10 or 15 key clients, as you would call them, the same clients, you know, we just know them, they tend to work with us exclusively. We don't even have to necessarily sell, inverted commas, a candidate in, that we'll just go, we've got somebody, I'll talk to you about them. But actually always be thinking about new business, because you just don't know, even as a niche recruiter, you just don't know when that client's going to turn the tap off or go out of business, God forbid.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see that a lot, don't we? Where these businesses that were successful within the last 6 to 12 months suddenly aren't, and it is desperation times.
Yeah.
And I think lessons learned over the last 2 or 3 years by the industry is, certainly from our perspective, and you've probably got a much greater grasp than myself, is BD is the hardest thing for a recruiter to learn and even harder to master. So in those peak times where companies have hired perhaps hand over fist rather than being pragmatic about it, they've brought in people, not had to teach them the hardest stuff from the start.
Yeah.
And then when it's come to like, oh, the job requests have dried up from our existing book of clients, what are all these guys sat around doing? They need to be doing BD. Well, you've now never trained them how to do BD, and now they must do it to keep their jobs. We're seeing that it's not just a marketing ploy. We're developing the platform to be something that, yes, as an experienced recruiter, these things are going to elevate your personal brand. These tools are going to get you job vacancy alerts and things like this. But as a rookie, I don't know if that's the right phrase to use, but as a rookie, you can learn these things and you have the advantage that tech's a bit easier for you to suddenly go, all right, get how that works. So we're looking at it from that perspective. It's a platform that helps people who know what they're doing do it faster. Or it acts as part of that. These are the daily things you should be doing to develop business. And I think, without going into overly sales pitch about it, it's just aligning. My job as a marketer is to more look at what the market wants than perhaps in the past we've gone, this would be cool to be able to do this on LinkedIn. Because it's disjointed from what the market needs versus what we want to build. So I think we're maturing ultimately as a software company.
Yeah, no, I
don't. As a person, I'll never mature, Alicia.
No, because you've got glitter on your face. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I was showing off, really. I'm not bothered about it. Put it on myself.
Well, first of all, congratulations on 7 years. That's amazing as a business, and actually as a software company, that's quite old, really, isn't it? But you're still going through this evolution, and it's really exciting to see that happen. But I think that whether a lot of our listeners, because I've talked to you about this before, that a lot of our listeners are newbies, they are rookies, newbies, whatever you want to call them, people starting their recruitment career, and there has been a huge chasm of recruitment companies not investing in training and development of those people in business development because they've quote unquote not needed to. And I've always, even in the peak of 2022, this is no secret, I hated 2022 as a rectorate because I was interviewing people who I don't believe have the skills, the attributes, the wherewithal, the real consultative skills to be successful. I saw them just getting jobs at ridiculous salaries just because it was the bum on the seat mentality. And by the way, I wasn't placing these people. I really did stand by my ethics that year. And of course, they're the ones that got caught because they didn't have the skills. It kind of goes full circle back to, training, developing people, giving them the right tools and skills. But, we love Paiger, even though we don't do outreach. We don't do any cold calling. Everything that we do is through our network and our personal brand and the advocates that I've talked about. And I guess that's it. It's just a really interesting conversation because I don't think I've actually ever talked about advocates before, because we used to, when I started my recruitment career, I don't know why, this really weird expression, and I say it to people and people think I'm literally like from a different planet. You had a bird dog. Have you ever heard that? You're like, he's looking at me strangely. So
I am, because this is going to be a very strange coincidence. So I think I'm going to get the background in why I'm familiar with the term, even though I'm not aware of the term.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So bird dog was somebody that you planted in your industry that was really well connected, that you would go for lunch with, you do all the proper relationship building, knowing you were never going to place with them or place them in a job, but they would go out as the bird bit, I'm guessing. They would go and send out your message to people and that would then bring you business. I have no idea where the bird dog bit comes in, but I don't think it gets talked about enough because actually...
That's really interesting.
That is what set me apart when I first set up Key. We're 20 years this year in 2025. We're 20 years old.
Congratulations, you're putting us to shame.
It's, well, I've been doing it a really long time, and if I could go back to what made me, obviously there's lots of reasons why I set up, how I got going as quickly as I did is because I had bird dogs. I happened to bump into one on my very first day. I went into manager and I bumped into one. And I was like, he's like, oh, I've set up on my own. I've obviously had a baby, couldn't get flexible work and blah, blah, blah. Set up on my own. And he went, oh my God, I know two people. And he literally went on his phone, gave me their numbers, and that was it. I was off.
Yeah.
So I just think maybe that's something else we could look at. And
I think there's a lot in that. And going back to the thing, the comment, because it's the alignment of, I love Paiger, and it's like, but I've never really done outreach. That's the thing we're trying to do with educating people on the other parts of the product. Like the personal brand thing is something we're quite well known for. But that's an example of that is a big part of business development. People don't see it as much because they're still short-termist, but building that personal brand on a daily basis is going to help you with your BD in the future. I think we've been naive to think people just get that our platform can help that. The bird dog one's really weird because I've been approached. When you work in software, you end up looking at a lot of other software, either from we could use that, or are they doing something we could be doing? And I've recently been approached by a lead generation company called Bird Dog. So that's why it pricked my ears up.
oh,
So I think there is obviously a background meaning. Loads of people will be listening going, you two, we've been calling them bird dogs for years. This is why. So you know what it means. I didn't know what it meant. I've no idea the origins. So comment on LinkedIn if you see this as a clip where the origins of bird dog comes from.
Origins of
bird dog. It makes a lot of sense.
I would tag my original director, but I actually got trolled by her, and I blocked 2 years ago. I did. I got trolled by all the old directors of where I first started my recruitment career. So I think some of them aren't even in recruitment anymore. But yeah, so I would tag her otherwise and say, why did we call it? But I might have to ring some of my alumni because I'm still a lot of my alumni are my clients now. Funnily enough, I might ask them, have I made that up? Maybe I just drank that much.
Definitely not made it up.
Don't know. Who knows? Maybe my brain is pickled. But no, I think the personal branding element is something that I think it almost seems passé to talk about it because obviously we've all been talking about it since COVID. Yeah. But I think I get recognised when I'm walking through Manchester, and that makes me sound like an absolute arsehole. But I know people are recognising me, and I don't know who they are. But I'll literally kind of wave, and then I'll get a message on LinkedIn saying it was me you walked past. They've recognised me, and the next thing they're saying, "Well, actually, I think I'm looking for a new role." And that's the power of personal brand. It's literally where people are so familiar with you that if you were to then send them a message, they would know exactly who you are. And, without blowing the trumpet of key recruitment, 100% of our business is inbound.
Yeah.
We're the only recruiter that doesn't do in-mails. We don't send e-shots.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard to just quickly top this up, but if you any of the listeners are having LinkedIn renewal conversations of late, it's not a cheap thing to buy. So you're just showing that there's an alternative way around the pay-as-you-play model, specifically with LinkedIn. I think what that kind of illustrates is something that I think people, from your perspective, that works really well. But I think there's a lot of recruiters out there that cringe at personal brand from the perspective of, I don't want or need that. And sometimes I think it's over-egged in what we're trying to say to the individual recruiter, right? Because if there's a recruiter that recruits for marketers, as an example, their personal brand only needs to be known by people like me when I'm looking to hire or I'm looking for a job. They don't need to be recognizable walking down the street. We're not saying that everyone should get to. It's almost like there's a level of personal brand which is be known amongst your audience, and then it's dependent on your audience how famous that is. Like you're famous within a larger community as such because you've got a strong presence and personal brand. I think that predates anything to do with LinkedIn. It's just your natural networking and bird dog finding ability. But for individual recruiters, we're never pushing someone to say you need to be famous on LinkedIn. We're saying you need to be known within your audience. It doesn't matter if any of your colleagues even know who you are on LinkedIn. But if every marketer in the city you work knows you as the marketing recruiter, that's a strong personal brand.
It really is, and actually it's a really important point. We're not talking about creating celebrities here. Like if I think about me as a valuable consultant in my market, and I am actually agnostic, and we recruit for the recruitment industry, so we're niche, but we recruit massive in every industry. And I had it literally this week with he's a very niche recruiter. He's within financial services, very niche within financial services. And he'd not heard of this company because it was a slight nuance within it. So he's got one niche and another niche, but it's under the bracket, and there's like about 20 different niches. And I said, but go and look at them. This is why, this is who I've placed there. This is why I think they're right for you. And he then went and did his due diligence on LinkedIn. He went and looked at endorsements of the director that he's had an interview with today. And he's gone, we've got loads of the same connections. Straight away, that client's personal brand on LinkedIn made my candidate go, I want to, and he's only going to go and talk to them. So I think what you've said there is a really relevant point. And again, what I find, particularly when I'm going out and, our clients are your clients, it's recruitment leaders and founders. Is there's a little bit of reluctance by leaders to think they don't need to do this. They don't need to put themselves out there. That, we've got a website, my recruiters are doing it, but it's actually, I think it's such a missed opportunity, not just for potential clients to come to you for business development, but actually your future employees.
There's lots of similarities with any business. Like, from the outside looking in, if Darren didn't practice what he preached, he didn't put himself on LinkedIn, how would we want to work at a business that's kind of professing to be able to help other people do this? And I think, recruitment leaders perhaps that think, I don't know whether it's their own age, experience level, that think, oh, it's not for me. I think that missed opportunity is you've got strong networks, but also people will check you out. If I'm looking for my next role, I will look at who the CEO is. Why would you not do? I will look at who the MD is. Why would you not do? People are doing that by default, just like you look up a restaurant review before going somewhere to eat for the first time. So even if you'd never be a direct report to the CEO or MD, if they've got absolutely no presence, and like we said, this isn't about everyone becoming famous. It's just about something current. What are they involved in? They're not running a business because they've got nothing to offer, right? You're in that chair, you're in that position because you've done something of note in your career, and you have what do we kind of say to Darren? We need to almost take to the market what his point of view is. So it's not just he says personal brand should do this. It's got to be why. What do we need coming out of Darren's mouth to say to the market as to why these things are important? And that's how I think marketing teams or leaders themselves should look at them inwardly and go, what can I be saying to add confidence to our business? What can I be saying to be more attractive to the likes of the candidates you put forward to work at that business?
Yeah, no, definitely. That's actually a very nice segue to something that I want to cover off with you, if that's okay. That I know we've chatted before about, I think you commented on, especially with like the lonely marketeers, that a lot of recruitment business owners don't necessarily see the value of marketing as a function within their own business. And I kind of saw like a boom within recruitment agencies hiring in somebody to be a marketer. I'm not necessarily advocating that one way or the other. I'm going to be neutral on that. Recruitment and sales, I believe, have always been, bed partners.
Hand in glove,
hand in glove, or whichever analogy we want to go down. I'll go down the rude route then.
Hand in glove in bed, maybe. Weird. Weird.
The bird dog. So if this is to the one person listening now that does not see or doesn't connect the link between marketing, because you and I've talked about ROI before. So can you just give us I guess that one person listening that's maybe a bit cynical?
It's soapbox time. It's dangerous one. I did actually do. I was really interested. I might plug a link to my own content here because I might not explain it so succinctly here, but if people are interested in a longer answer. So I'd sum it up by saying there's almost like a data validated set of studies and research by marketing professionals that are way above and beyond my experience and capacity. That says in any market, give or take a slight percentage, 95% of your audience are not in the market to buy. So that leaves 5%.
Wow.
So right now, one of your audience who you think I can get a message in front of, Well, if they're in the 95%, you using what I term as a sales message or a direct response message of buy our stuff now is totally wasted. If all you do is constantly go to the market with buy our stuff now, buy our stuff now, you're going through a transient 5% max. So tomorrow that 5% might be a different set of people, but it's still only 5%. What are you doing at any given time to the 95%? That's where marketing should be applied, so that when somebody needs your business, you're front of mind. They move into the 5% and go, I've just had a headcount budget signed off. Who's that rec to rec? The one with the blonde hair in Manchester. Oh, Leisha, I'm going to go to her. Because why would they go to someone else? So by default,
I'm trying to think who you meant then. You meant me.
There's not another one. There's only one famous one.
It's funny.
The 95-5 rule, people hear the first time and go, bollocks. But it's proven. And why, when you think of famous companies, do you see so many creative plays and, oh my God, Specsavers are so good at marketing? Well, you get an eye test once a year. That's why their adverts aren't saying, come and get an eye test now. They're doing creative things that make you think, oh, Specsavers.
I tell you, they are one of my favourite brands. I love what Specsavers, but I think they're properly funny.
Yeah, exactly. But it's all, none of it is direct response / sales messaging. And I think for the founder, the MD, who's not convinced that they need to invest in marketing, well, not investing in marketing, you are still doing marketing. Every time your sales team picks up the phone or sends an email, they are doing a level of marketing. What they're doing it without is without structure or organization. So if everyone picks up the phone and says something different, if some people put limited on the end of your company name when they talk to a prospect, or some people use an acronym instead of the proper business name. All of that is marketing. And without a marketer steering it, all those three people might think they've spoke to a different person. So the 95-5 rule is a great starting point if you're an absolute disbeliever, because you can keep pumping that sales message out. If I've only ever heard sales messaging while I'm in the 95%, the day I move into the 5%, I'm not thinking about you. I'm thinking about the person who did something memorable, whether experience, whether content, whether at an event. Well, I can remember that giveaway, that company that was really weird at the time. Oh, I remember it though, don't I? And didn't they do recruitment? I find it frustrating as a marketer that marketers themselves are the ones within the recruitment sector that have almost got to pull the teeth of the traditional sales progressed owners and directors, because it's almost like self-fulfilling. Well, we did fine with sales in the past, so it'll be fine. We don't need marketing. I find it strange.
We just need to do more sales calls. We just need to do more BD. We just need to pick up the phone more. And it's like,
but not everyone's sat there waiting to buy. Do you need any help with hiring? No. What else have you got to offer them at that point? What else have you got to offer at that point? That's where marketing can help. And like you touched on, we've spoken about ROI, the perspective. I think the background and nature of an industry like ours stacks it against the marketer sitting there. It's almost cliched now. The marketer's going to say, it depends. The marketer's going to say, it takes time. It's like, they don't say that because they've got no better answer. It's true. You don't see one advert and buy a new car. You don't see one thing and do this. Sales being quite, not results driven, but binary in terms of, did the deal get done? Yes or no? Marketing is shades of grey. Like you can't say, oh, I heard Paiger's name mentioned on Leisha's podcast. Oh, I saw him at Recruitment Expo. I've seen an ad on LinkedIn. They've come through, they've booked a demo and the deals get done. What's the ROI on those? It can't be. It's got to be, what's the ROI on marketing? And all those three things took place at different times. So you've got to have the long-term view to go, well, that might took 6 months. So you could no way switch on, all right, we're going to stop running ads on LinkedIn, or we're going to cancel our sponsorship of Leisha's podcast because we've not seen a return in month one.
Yeah.
And again, I think almost like thinking about that 95-5 thing and thinking about long-termism, it's just the hope that some leaders take a step back and think, actually, right, it's stacked against marketing's delivery because it's a totally different mindset, and I don't even know what to describe
it. It's holistic, isn't it? It's holistic, and it's also strategic because it's data led. You know, but equally you've got to, you know, when I'm speaking, I do speak to recruitment company owners. Obviously, that's all I do day in, day out. And it's very rare that this hypothetical person that we're both speaking to now, but they do exist. Because I'll be, what's your marketing strategy? And they'll go, well, we don't need a marketing strategy. We just BD. And it's like, but you need a strategy. You need to have, you know, a uniform approach to how you deal with potential customers. And, you know, I'm not going to sit there and waste my time and my breath. I will consult them. But you're trying to potentially work with somebody who has got a closed mindset. But you'd like to think that one that's taking time to listen to a podcast, I always think, has got an open mindset because you're taking time to learn. So
that's very true.
That's been valuable.
So yeah, you let me get a bit on the soapbox there, but I could speak at length about that. And you know, the sad thing I see is I experienced it where I was fortunate to get opportunities as a marketer in recruitment, but did reach a few career points where I was like, I need to get out of this because it's banging your head against a brick wall. And it's the people in junior level marketing roles that I fear for at the minute, where the person who's hired them feels like they are their marketing investment. And it's like you're just hanging a junior out to dry there. You've put them in and gone, you're the marketer, now do the marketing. And it's like, oh, you wouldn't bring a salesperson in at rookie level with no one more senior than them to show them the way.
Oh, I don't know. Plenty do, Kieron. do.
Yeah, maybe I'm making the assumptions now.
They call us, that's the reality. No, I had to get you on the soapbox because I know it's something you're really passionate about. And I'm more than happy when we do share this for people, if you want to share the link to that to longer exploratory conversation. Well, we've covered quite a lot, really.
We have to say we set off with a blank slate. And
let's see where the chat goes. It goes without saying, if you're listening to this and you've been listening to us for any period of time, you'll know that there's already a message from Paiger, but make sure you mention the Recruitment podcast when you do drop Kieron a message, or whoever it might be, and they can see the true value of the ROI. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. It's been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure, and thank you for all your support. We're so grateful to you.
No problem. Thanks.